hardware store workers, what is the most I just committed murder purchase you've ever seen? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. Not a murder, but a woman once came into Fleet Farm in the middle of the workday in a very nice business suit. I rung up for her a castrator pliers and one single bag of bands. I asked if she wanted to put it on a farm sheet and she said it wasn't for farm use. Completed her purchase in cash and walked out. It was not spring, when sheep castrating usually happens, and she was what I would call highly agitated. I watched the newspaper for a while after that. Story 2. My hardware store did sell to a serial killer about 20 years ago. He ordered rope and a specifically short amount of chain and wire that was sold by the foot. He later used those to strangle his victims. After he was caught, recipes were found from our store. Police came in, showed the picture, and my boss confirmed he had bought the stuff. Story 3. A long time ago, my mom worked as a manager at a local Ace hardware store that sold guns and ammo. She had a story of a guy that came in and very urgently wanted to buy a gun and one bullet. She refused him. Story 4. When I was 16, some friends and I were buying PVC pipe. A worker, who was a 20-something stoner, asked if we needed help finding anything and we gave him our list. He chuckled and said, "You're building a potato gun." We claimed we weren't, and he just shook his head and told us we were doing it wrong. He showed us all the parts and told us how to put together our not potato gun. I hope that dude is thriving because the potato gun he helped us with literally shot a potato over 2 football field lengths. It was basically a 5-foot-long mortar. Story 5. Not a hardware store, but a bicycle shop. Guy came in and asked for a few bicycle inner tubes. Said he was going to do something nice for the kids. His car was found in a forest the next morning with the inner tubes connected to the exhaust pipe. He'd kidnapped his ex-wife and 2 little kids and gassed them and himself in the car. Saddest thing was the little girl had written a letter to her classmate a week before in which she said she thought her dad was going to kill them. She was only 8. The father had been issued with a restraining order that morning for domestic violence, but the police did nothing to protect them. Story 6. Not a hardware store, but a discount chain. I testified on the validity of video footage of the murderers buying rope, shovel, gloves, and the items to bury the body. These guys used a brand associated only with that chain of stores. Pretty easy to trace the tools back to where they were purchased. Story 7. When my family owned a hardware store, we, unknowingly, ended up selling a handsaw to a guy who later used it to cut up the body of his girlfriend he murdered. A couple of us ended up having to testify at his murder trial to help prove premeditation. I never ended up following the trial any further, but I think he was unfortunately suffering from a mental breakdown or illness. Story 8. Friend told me the story of how she was busy looking at saw blades when someone asked if she needed help. When she turned and asked them which of the 2 she had in her hand, which one did they think would be best to cut through human bones, they very quickly walked away, saying they will go check. For context, she was actually needing to know this as she was in a forensic lab dealing with a mass body count after a horrifying bushfire when they ran out of blades and not able to get some sent from their supplier in time. Story 9. I have a house in an urban area next to a huge high-rise, and I was very frustrated that they had a dying tree abutting our property line, for which after months of emailing, I decided to take matters into my own hands. There was also a large rat problem from their dumpsters. So I went to Home Depot and got a product to solve each problem. On my way to checkout, I noticed a huge display of duct tape, so I reflexively grabbed one, thinking you can never have enough. So as I put my purchases on the checkout line, the employee asked me if she had to be concerned. I looked down and I was checking out with just a roll of duct tape, an axe, and a bunch of rat poison. I was able to convince her we were all good. Story 10. Fun story. My dad is a retired doctor and acquired a teaching skeleton which he drove around with, no, not to drive in the carpool lane. He was picking up some dirt at a Lowe's, and the guys saw the skeleton in the back of his car. They distracted him and called up the cops, thinking he murdered someone and was buying a bunch of soil to cover up the body. Luckily, he worked in the ER for a long time, and the cops in town knew who he was, and he likes that teaching skeleton. Story 11. I definitely got the suspicious looks when I bought a case of Smirnoff and a shovel once. We had just moved, and on my 21st birthday, my cat died. I wanted to bury him in our new yard, but we didn't have a shovel, so I went to Walmart. I decided, hey, it's my birthday, I'm sad and depressed, why don't I buy some alcohol since I am legal now? So I grabbed a case of Smirnoff and went looking for a shovel. I noticed a store associate following me as I made my way to Garden Center. So I just asked, where are the shovels? And he gave me a perplexed look and then a nervous laugh and said he thought I was going to make a run for it since I was going towards the outer garden section. Got my shovel, went to the register with my 2 items. And when they asked for my ID, they were like, oh, happy birthday, and kept glancing at the shovel and my red-rimmed eyes from crying. Story 12. I'm too late and not a hardware store worker, but this was a crazy case. A number of years ago in Michigan, a woman killed her son. She then drove to the hardware store to get a power saw with which to cut him up. Unfortunately for her, when she got home, it turned out the saw was defective, so she returned to the store and got a new one. When she got home, there was also an issue with that one. She returns to the store a final time, and the manager can be seen on the video apologizing profusely, getting the saw out of the box and testing it for her before sending her on her way. Her ability to go back multiple times and return the defective product was part of the evidence used to deny her insanity plea. Story 13. About 20 years ago, I worked at a Sears that was in one of the last major shopping centers on the way to a very fashionable vacation destination. A well-dressed older guy in a baseball cap came in and filled up his cart with saw blades, hand saws, drill bits, and so many vises. It was all woodworking stuff, but in surprising quantities. Usually the big sales were to young people just starting out in a trade, or recent retirees starting a new hobby. The woodworkers this guy's age tended to have established shops, garages, and would come in for replacement pieces, but this was all brand new. I wanted that commission, so I worked a little extra to help him find stuff. He was pleasant and soft-spoken. When I rang him up and asked for his phone number for the rewards program, he gave me a number with an Louisiana area code. Back then, it was more rare for people to have out-of-state numbers, especially among our usual customers. That alone, combined with the purchase, made him stand out. I entered the number and his name popped up on the screen. Wes Craven. Story 14. Not hardware, but close to it. Circa 1998. I was working at a gas station one night, and a man comes in with a blue gas can. He prepays, I think, $3 of gas and leaves after pumping it into the can. It stuck out in my mind because blue cans are supposed to be for kerosene. 3 to 4 days later, everyone was talking about the fire someone set that killed a woman. A fire investigator shows up at the station and asks if I remembered a certain name and/or vehicle. I don't. The investigator then tells me that they can tell which gas station gas came from, so it has to have been bought either at our station or 115 or so miles down the road. After chatting a bit, he mentioned that the arsonist had used a blue gas can. The light bulb came on over my head, and I mentioned seeing one. The guy with the blue can ended up killing someone with the gas I sold him. Story 15. I bought a shovel, concrete, contractor bags, tarp, bleach, goggles, Tyvek suit, gloves. Why, I really bought all that. Completing turnover repairs on a rental property. Had to dig around a porch slab and reinforce with additional concrete. The porch was surrounded by a flower bed, so all of the dirt had to be put on the tarp. Trash bags were used to pick up all of the trash left on the property by the previous renters. Bleach was diluted with water and used to kill mold spores in the shower surround. Goggles and Tyvek suit were used while operating a paint sprayer to paint the interior of the home. I have made similar purchases to this hundreds of times for home repairs. So far, no FBI agents have come looking for me. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a like button and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.